Seems to me there are a lot of misunderstandings about the legality of making one of these Mahindra Roxors street legal. So in this video, we're gonna do some upgrades to my Roxor to make it roadworthy, and then we're gonna go through all the ins and outs, the good, the bad, and the ugly, depending on what state you live in, of making this Mahindra Roxor a street legal vehicle. Hey, it's Brock here with Rockhill Farm, and today we're going to talk about what it takes to make a Roxor street legal. There's a couple of different options for that, and then we're also going to compare some cab options. So this is the Hard Cabs brand. I've talked a lot in my other Roxor videos about why the Roxor Hard Cab is the best cab on the market. But this is not the full cab. This is the sports cab. So the first piece we're putting on here, this piece here that receives the windshield. You got bolts up here, the windshield will bolt to that. Almost the whole cab is held on with these clamps. So you can tighten and loosen them like that until it's kind of hard to push this down. That tells you it's good and tight. Looks like you can do most of this install without any tools. Everything about this kit seems really well made. Here's the top. It's got an insulation to it, which is on all their cabs. And then the whole thing attaches with that same clamping system. And then here we have the windshield itself. And then here we have the bottom rail. This bolts on using existing bolts. So I've done this next step here. Took these bolts out, removed the stock Mahindra front bar, and replaced it with this Hard Cabs windshield holder bar. Now what it looks like to me is that I'm supposed to drill a couple holes here and add 2 more bolts, but I haven't done that yet. But for now, we've got this on here and we've left it loose where it can move up and down. So when we bolt the windshield on and then we go to latch it in, we can make sure that's nice and smooth, got the right height on it, and then lock these 4 bolts down. All right, so I've got the rest of the install finished up. I want to get to the street legal part of this. I want to take this out on the road. I'm going to go talk to my county and my city, see if I can get a tag for it, go through all of that. But before I do, I want to give a quick breakdown on the options, because there are certain things you're going to want to do. And depending on where you live, you may be legally required to do some of these things. Other places you may be required to do all of them. So for instance, in Oklahoma, you can get an on-road tag for this without putting a windshield on it, which is crazy to me. I've driven this around here quite a bit without a windshield, and you don't want to go above about 20, 25 miles an hour until it's beating you to death, and a bug to the face almost feels fatal. So whether they require it in your area or not, there are certain things you're going to want to do. I think almost everywhere is going to require you to have mirrors, but these are inexpensive mirrors. So is this one. And every product I'm showing here, I'll have links in the video description where you can get the same stuff I've got. Almost everywhere is going to require a turn signal kit. The turn signal kit I have works really well. It's actually kind of cool when you see how it works with these headlights. So when you turn the turn signal on, you've got this big flashing ring on the headlights. And then there's the small lights. That's what actually comes with the kit. But I've got these LED headlights that are really cool, and they work with the turn signal kit. So this turn signal kit is from Rough Country. It's affordable and it works. But when you're turning that way, you push that, you have to remember to push it back to the neutral position. Now, if you go on the Diesel Freak website, they have one that mounts onto your steering column, and it's called auto canceling so that it shuts itself off. More like what you're used to in a regular car. If we're establishing that you need a windshield, obviously you can buy the all-weather model, and that is a much more expensive option, but I like the Hard Cabs brand cabs a lot better. And this kit that I've got is made by Hard Cabs. This is their sports cab. If you're looking at what is the cheapest way I can get this thing street legal, you're gonna get some clamp-on mirrors or like these little bolt-on mirrors, the cheap turn signal kit, and a fixed windshield. And you can get a fixed windshield from websites like Diesel Freak, or there's other websites. You can get that fixed windshield for like $450, I think. With shipping, you may pay a little more than that, but there are some different options for just a windshield. And then you can get a full cab, utility cab, with tool storage, and heat and air conditioning and everything for like $9,000. So you're looking at a range from $500 to $9,000 and trying to find a spot what makes sense out of that range. So let's walk through it. You can get like a soft top on this really cheap, and for $700 or so, have a version of what I've got here. Then the next step up would be this kit right here from Hard Cabs. This gives you that flip out windshield with the shocks. Really a nice feature. And it gives you this insulated hard canopy, which is a big step up. And this kit, I believe, is around $1,900. So you guys know how it works on YouTube. Most of my stuff is sponsored. I did not pay for this sports cab. But I could have got the full cab, and eventually maybe I will, because I kind of like the idea of it for winter. But I thought to myself, as far as what am I going to put on it right now? I said, what would I buy? I think I'd buy this sports kit because it's such a great value at that price and what you get. So they also have a summer cab, and the summer cab is similar to the sports cab, but it has back pillars, and I believe it comes with the half doors. And then you've got your full cab options. The summer cab might be around $3,500. And then a full cab with a full hard doors around $5,000, $5,300, somewhere in that range. And then for a couple thousand more, you can add heat and air conditioning. You're looking at like $7,200, I believe, for the full cab with hard doors, heat and air conditioning. That is the two-seater cab that comes to here and leaves the bed open. Then there's a four-seater cab that comes all the way back to the back, and then they've got a utility cab. So you've got all these options, but the cheapest way to get a windshield is just buy the windshield. But I think this $1,900 kit is maybe the best value out there. I'll put a link where you can order this canopy or any of the other Hard Cabs products in the video description. One other thing I didn't show on this is the sun visors. They're fully adjustable. You can swing the whole thing up out of the way if you're not using it, or you can leave this down and then just swivel this part up and down. So the laws on this kind of thing vary pretty widely from state to state. There are some states, like Montana, where you can just go to the tag office, say, I want to tag my Roxor, and they give you a tag, and you're fully street legal. And for my money, I wish every state was like that. I also understand why they're not, but I want to talk a little bit about the states that make it the easiest. And then what you can do. But the question is, if you live in a state that does not let you legally drive this on the road, are there workarounds? So, I already mentioned Montana. No inspections, no emissions requirement, full street legal authorization. Like, no problem. And that's why there are these services I'm going to talk about in a little bit that will get you a Montana tag no matter what state you live in. And we're going to talk about the pros and the cons of that. We'll get to it. Also, South Dakota. There are slightly more requirements on the vehicle than Montana, but not much. You can tag it and fully drive it on the street in South Dakota. Other states where you can get a real tag. Now, I'm taking this off my notes online. So I called the county. I called the highway patrol. I talked to the local city. I questioned AI. I did Google searches. I went on Facebook and asked other real owners about their experience. I've been researching this for a few days. Other states where you can get a real tag: Arizona, Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, Oklahoma, Michigan, North Dakota. Now, in these states, you probably have more paperwork to do. You might have to have your vehicle fully inspected. They might, want to look at your brakes and your exhaust and your windshield and all of those things. But you can get a full tag in all of those states. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 states where you can just get a tag and drive it on the street. Now, if you live in one of those states, you're one of the lucky ones. Then there are states that my search results say are mid-tier states, like Kansas and Missouri. And I live right in the corner where Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri come together. Within 10 miles of here, I can be in all 3 states. So all 3 of those are relevant to me. In Kansas and Missouri, they're considered mid-tier states, along with Iowa, Wisconsin, Tennessee, and others. These states don't offer true statewide registration. They allow local use in towns and counties, but there are real restrictions on it. So, for instance, in rural Kansas, You can go into any local town, you pay them a small fee, they look at your insurance, they look at your VIN number, they write you a permit, and then you can legally drive in town. The highway patrol told me if you've got insurance and you're following those basic rules and you're on a county road, they're going to leave you alone unless you're doing something reckless. That is a little bit different than saying we'll give you a tag that says you're legal to drive on this road. They allow it, and there's an exemption for farm use. And the way that works is if I own this property and then I own another property 5 miles from here, I can drive my tractor on the road. On these country roads, these rural roads, farmers can move stuff between their properties without tagging it or doing anything like that. And you can use that same thing for a Mahindra Roxor or a Honda side-by-side. If I sit on my front porch all day long, I will watch side-by-sides drive up and down this road. Now, technically, by the letter of the law, if you got into some kind of a problem, whether it's a ticket or an accident or a problem with a police officer, you would have to justify that the trip you're on right now is not recreational, that it's farm use. In the real world, it's unlikely that that's actually going to be a problem though. But where I go with this is, what is the worst case scenario? So let's say I'm driving 50 miles an hour on this road here and someone else comes around a curve out of control. They could be drunk or stupid or whatever, and they come across into my lane and we, have a collision or get run off the road or any number of things. You can have medical bills that are hundreds of thousands of dollars, easily millions, in damages to property, damages to the other person's vehicle. So you've got to have your insurance to do it. But in that scenario, when all that money's involved, it won't matter if your neighbor told you it's okay to drive these on the road. What's going to matter is what the law says. So I don't want to be cavalier about saying you can drive them on the road. Now, I had some people in my comment section tell me that I couldn't get insurance to drive that Roxor on the road. But I went to the same insurance company that all my other insurance is through and said, I want a quote for liability insurance to drive my off-road vehicle on-road. And I want a quote for liability and I want a quote for full coverage. And I was in the office for 15 minutes. They looked up the Mahindra Roxor. They got all the information on it, how much it weighs, the list price for it on replacement, and they sold me a full coverage on-road use insurance policy, so I'm covered if I'm in an accident driving this on the road. And I think that's the most important thing, is that you get an insurance policy that fully covers you and you disclose to the insurance company that you will be using this on road. The policy was cheap because I said I'm not going to drive it regularly on the road, but my policy gives me authorization to drive it on the road and coverage for if I drive it on the road. So now we've listed 10 states that will just let you fully drive on the road. Then I listed a few other states that will kind of let you drive on the road, but not issue you a full tag. There are other states that are just hardcore against it, and Texas, surprisingly, is one of those right now. And what can you do if you live in one of those states? Well, there are websites and services. One of them is called Dirt Legal, and a lot of people, I've talked to a lot of people who use Dirt Legal, and what that is, with Dirt Legal, you pay them like $1,000, and you send them your title, and then they create an LLC for you in Montana, and you don't own the Roxor, your LLC in Montana owns the Roxor. Now, if you actually had a business in Montana and it had its own LLC and it owned that Roxor, but you drive the Roxor all around the country, that's legal. And that's what this service does. They create an LLC for you, give you a Montana license plate, and you have a fully licensed vehicle. Then you get insurance, you're good to go, right? Kind of. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of people who've done this. And it's not just Roxors, it's all types of ATVs, UTVs, side-by-sides, whatever you want to call it, that use Dirt Legal to get license plates in other states. Problem is, some states have specific laws prohibiting you from doing that. And in Texas, there have been a bunch of stories of people who got pulled over with that Montana plate, and they looked at it and said, you live in Texas, but you're driving this tagged in Montana? How long have you had this? Do you ever go to Montana? Do you have a second home in Montana? Is this a real business? And if you're using a service like this, there are a bunch of stories of people who've had their utility vehicles impounded because they use this service. And then there's also the very famous YouTuber who has an LLC in Montana, and it's very common. people do this, and they've been doing it for years and years and years. Create an LLC in Montana. There's no sales tax. Register your vehicle in Montana. Drive it where you live. And people have done this for a long, long time. There are some states that say if your residence is in their state, you have 30 days to tag the vehicle in your state, even if it's owned by an LLC. And that seems questionable that that can even be a legislative act, but it is. And there's nothing we can do about it. So I would be careful with that. I thought about it, and where I'm at right now is I don't think I'm going to use the dirt legal approach. I'm going to do what my state will already allow me to do. And the other concern with the Montana loophole is it can be seen as an attempt at tax evasion because you don't have to pay sales tax. If I buy that vehicle, then register it in Kansas, I have to pay sales tax in Kansas, and it can be seen as an attempt at tax evasion. Even if I say I just want the Montana license so I can get it street legal, I'm willing to pay the taxes. They don't give you that option, and now you can be seen as attempting tax evasion. And again, that's probably unlikely, but it is something you need to consider, and it's happened to that other YouTuber that I'm not going to mention by name. What I wondered is, can I go through dirt legal, register it in Montana, transfer the tag to Kansas, and then have a fully street legal vehicle? Now, the problem with doing that is when you go to your license bureau in your state and you say, I want to transfer my Montana tag to my state, you're going to show them your title, and they will probably see on the title it says UTV, and they will issue you an off-road tag. And so that's probably not a workaround. There's one more possible loophole, and some of this comes down to how bad do you want to make this thing street legal? And the reason it's so tempting to jump through hoops is because this isn't a side-by-side. In my mind, this should be a street legal vehicle, but I understand the financial implications of why it's not a street legal vehicle, that Mahindra would have to jump through a lot more hoops to make it a street legal vehicle, and they've chosen not to do that. So now they cannot encourage you in any way to go around that, to say, we're going to sell you a off-road vehicle that you can easily make a street legal vehicle, because then they are kind of cheating the system. So Mahindra in no way endorses making these street legal, but it has automotive brakes, automotive transmission, full-size tires. It's basically a street legal vehicle, except that it doesn't have like airbags and some of the emissions components. So one of the guys that I met up with in Tennessee had 50,000 miles on his Roxor, and he drove it from West Virginia to Tennessee, and he says his is fully street legal. He can drive it any way he wants, and he actually sent me from the state website the legal requirements to make his Roxor street legal in West Virginia. It's not that hard to do. So that's one of those states in West Virginia where you can easily do this, and you register as a special use vehicle or something, and you're good to go. So there's one more opportunity to make a Roxor street legal that is a workaround, and I am not legally advising you to do, but it is a possibility depending on your state. Some states allow you to get a on-road vehicle license for a homemade vehicle, where you are not taking an existing vehicle. You're buying axles, and you're taking a frame off of something else, and you're building your own car from scratch. I've done this with a trailer. Actually, my dad did it, and I went with him, and we got it tagged, and he did a homemade trailer. You can do the same thing with a homemade vehicle, but it's going to vary depending on your state. And in theory, you could modify a Roxor so heavily that now you can make it street legal through the homemade vehicle process. But that might depend on a lot of scenarios and how far you're willing to go with it. That you could go talk to the highway patrol and ask them, if I bring this up here to inspection, what is it going to take for this to qualify as a homemade or heavily modified vehicle? So this is probably already a long video, and I haven't given you hard, concrete answers, but that's because there are 50 states and a lot of counties, and it's going to depend on the state you live in. The bottom line is, do your research and don't just take someone else's word for it, but really dig in. So hopefully this was helpful information. I appreciate you taking time to watch the video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.